As the proud children of science and reason, we have made ourselves the orphans of wisdom. Dr. Deepak Chopra. We cannot betray our spiritual nature without paying a great price. It is not that we have a soul, but that we are a soul. Dr. Rachel Riemann.
Welcome everyone to our channel, Spiritual Resilience. I'm Tana.
And I'm Bruce.
And he's my nephew and the guy that runs the technology. Thank you, Bruce. I love you so much. We're excited to have you here tonight. And I just wanted us to talk about, in terms of spiritual resilience, I just wanted us to talk about the power of love, because I really think that that's the bottom line. I think it's the foundation upon which spiritual resilience is built. I think it's the foundation to a happier, more fulfilling life experience here on the planet. And so I was thinking of this story because, you know, I love to tell stories. So I was thinking about when I was 9 years old, and it was a beautiful summer day, which meant my big brother, Ben, who's 4 years older than me, and myself were out of school. And I need to pause here, though, and let you know a couple of things. First of all, we had a Samoyed dog. If you don't know what a Samoyed is, they're a sled dog. It's a pretty good sized animal. And they've just got like 70 billion pounds of white, long, flowy hair and the curly Q tail, you know. And his name was Kiska. And we loved him. He was Ben's dog. And Ben took some stash from my father's leather workings, because he would work with leather a lot, and made a harness for Kiska so that he could pull us, and taught him to G and Ha. And he would pull us in our little red wagon. Ben would hook him up to the little red wagon. We would perch precariously, I might add, inside of that little wagon, which I honestly don't know how Ben poured his body into that. He's pretty big. And he would, you know, tell Kiska to go, and Kiska would just take off and pull us around town. We lived in a little small farming community. And only a couple of times, you know, did he hit a little rock that little wagon's wheels wouldn't go over. And he kept going, but we stopped abruptly. And then just tipped over, got a little road rash, but it was all right. Anyway, so this one beautiful summer day, my brother Ben and I went out to the front of our house, and it was a corner lot. And so the two sidewalks came in, and our sidewalk went diagonally out to meet those two sidewalks, and there was a ditch on two sides there. And in those days, you know, we used to irrigate our gardens and yards and things, and with irrigation water. And so that's what the ditch was for. But the most happy thing would happen in that ditch. It would grow just tons of these beautiful, fragrant sweet peas. And so we're standing there, and the sweet peas smell is coming to me on the soft summer breeze. And I'm barefoot, of course, in the grass, and we're standing there. And my brother has come out for the purpose of calling Kiska back home, who had been gone for a few hours, you know, just off exploring, having his own little summer adventure. And I felt as a 9-year-old that my brother had the loudest whistle in the world ever. And he would put, you know, his forefinger and thumb and touch his tongue and the sides of his mouth and stretch his lips really tight. And then he would just let out this whistle. I was amazed. And I was like, wow, I want to do that too. And so I put my forefinger and my thumb in my mouth, stretched my lips, took a breath, and I let it out, just so excited for this wonderful thrill whistle that was going to come out of my being. And what happened was spit blew out and there was no whistle, and kind of ran down my arm. And I was like, dang, that's harder than I thought. But he had already done his whistle. And I was just like, there's no way this is going to work. There's no way this dog who's been gone for a couple hours is going to be able to hear him. And so I just started, in with my, Ben, I don't think this is going to work. And this is why, la, la, la. And he, as a dutiful big brother, just shut me down. He's like, you just be still and watch. And so I did. And we stood for what felt like forever to me. It's probably 7 minutes-ish. And Ben said, see? And I turned and I looked to my right, and down the road a block is this blur of white fur, just on a dead run towards us. And as he got closer, I could see his ears just plastered back on his white blowing hair. And those little paws are just pounding that pavement. And he is running for everything he's got. And he ran up to my brother and me and just sat down on the ground there and looked up at him like, what do you want me to do now, Ben? Which is what every animal on the planet says to Ben. Anyway, I stood there in total and utter amazement. And all of these questions start popping into my head. And all of these connections start being made. And I'm like, how in the world did this dog hear my brother whistle to him from so far away? And why in the world did he answer that? How could he, if he hears that well, and I'm sure there are other people out there whistling for their dogs, how did he not go to them? How did he know where my brother was? Why was he willing to stop his adventure to answer my brother's need of him in that moment? All these questions are popping into my head, and I'm like, hold the phone. What is going on here? And then as I have, aged, you can tell I have, over the years, I've thought about this story a lot, and I have really started to work some things out in my own soul about it. And I have realized that there is no way that dog, my sweet Kiska, would have stopped his grand adventure and run on a dead run for all that time to my brother's feet if there was not a relationship of love. My brother is a very, very loving being, and he showed Kiska love constantly every day and interacted with him and connected with him. And Kiska in return loved him back. And if that hadn't been the case, he could have stood there and whistled his full head off that day, and that dog would not have responded. And my dear friends, I think that's true for us. And there are a lot of things in this world to distract us from listening to the calls of those that love us most. And I get distracted. I do. There are a lot of things that get me excited and that I'm curious about. And that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Where it costs me is when it keeps me from answering the calls of those that matter most to me. And I also realize that, as I mentioned before, these kinds of relationships, they take time. They take gentleness. They take thoughtfulness. They take understanding, a willingness to partner, a willingness to respond to one another. And I'm just saying that maybe sometimes in a world so full of voices, of proverbial whistles, sorry, from people who want our attention, it can get tricky to have our hearts and our minds attuned to those that we love the most and those that mean the most to us. And I think that I just want to gently say that, my dear friends, it takes time and it takes willingness. And I don't know that very many people say that to us anymore. And I just want to say that. I just want to put that out there and say that, yeah, it's a vulnerable thing. It's a vulnerable thing to connect with somebody else and to do it over time and to allow a certain amount of discipline of our, I don't know, help me out here, Bruce, our own thoughts, our own desires, our own, our focus on us. It requires that we put that down for a hot minute and allow that vulnerableness to develop that deep relationship with one another, so that when that whistle happens from somebody that needs us now, we're attuned and we come running to their side. So that's my story, Bruce. Help us now go somewhere with that.
No, I think it's really good. When I was in Elmo and we were on our little farm,
with my brother Ben,
didn't-
that's his dad.
yes, my dad, he didn't even have to whistle because we had we had cows, sheep, horses. At one point we had pigs and dogs, and we had a house up on the hill, and down from the hill was our back gate, and then that led down a little road to the corral where the hay was, and that's where they all get fed. And every evening my dad would walk down, open the back gate, and when all the critters heard the back gate go, they would literally line up from largest critters to smallest critters and follow him all the way down to the corral. So he would open it up and feed everybody and then get them all in their place. And then he'd walk back up to the house after feeding everybody. But it was quite the sight to see them all just get in line with each other, even though they don't typically get along with each other. And as soon as food was done, they'd all go back to doing what they were doing, but they would all fall in line to follow him. And I think part of that is just being consistent. That discipline that you're saying is being willing to respond in a consistent manner with somebody and to reciprocate some effort. It doesn't have to be all effort and one for one, depending on what the relationship is, but there's got to be a consistency, and I think there's got to be a reciprocation of need and want and responding. And another point that I'd like to make is sometimes I don't think we see those people who are the ones who are responding for what and who they are. Sometimes even at a cost of a friendship or it being too late. I think sometimes we get focused on who we think should be the ones that are the most important or ones that we feel are the most important, but who is the one who is responding? Who is the one who is consistent for you, and who is the one who is reciprocating when it comes to a relationship? because I think a lot of those times those things aren't meant and met, and we put stock in relationships that don't reciprocate for us and that don't act consistently toward us. And again, we try and invest more into those, even though there's not something on the other end.
Wow, Bruce, that was really beautiful. So I wanted to go back for a little minute to your point about consistency. I don't think that all of those animals would have run and lined up and overcome their natural propensity to separate from each other to follow him if he wasn't consistent. That's an excellent point. I mean, if he was like, yeah, I'm not feeling it tonight. I'm not going to feed him. It's just, I don't want to. You know, that doesn't cut it. It's not going to produce that bond of trust and love that Ben was able to produce. He was thoughtful. He was caring. He sacrificed on their behalf, right? Because I'm a farm girl, and I'm here to tell you, it is not a delight to go out and feed the daggum animals twice a day. It's not delightful. You don't wake up in the morning at 4:30 and say, oh my gosh, I am so delighted to go out and feed those animals right now. I would not rather sleep right now. I'm going to jump up and go do that. No, it's a sacrifice.
Yeah, especially
the
when the weather's not so fun.
I know, because this is every day, rain or shine, every day, especially when you're milking the cows. Oh, my word. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But yeah, that consistency is a huge piece, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I loved your thought about, let's look around and see who's responding to that sacrifice, that giving, that love, that invitation for response. Let's see who's listening and pay attention. And yeah, it's not always the person we thought it would be, right?
Yeah.
It's not always the person we thought it would be. And those ones, I think, are the ones that last for a lifetime. I think those are the ones that bless and enrich your life over the span of your lifetime. Those are the ones that even if you're not in contact with all the time, you know that if you were to contact them in that moment, you'd be able to pick up right where you were.
Yeah, just like no time had been spent. I do have a couple friendships like that, and it's an amazing thing to have something like that.
It is. I do too. And you're, man, I love that point. Thank you. So, did you have a story or anything else? I mean, this might be a super short one.
No, I do have a couple other points that I wanted to cover. So one of the mental images I had when we were talking about this and forming relationships and bonds is machinery. Because when you have machinery that's constantly working together like cogs or an engine, the thing that you have to have, you don't have to have it, but you won't have it for very long if you don't have oil. And
right.
if you have the right kind of oil and you keep it there, there's no detrimental effects to constantly running together. If you don't have oil and you have metallic gears or anything like that running together, then what you have is a fire and everything's going to heat up and melt down.
Yes, that's true, because I've actually had that special experience on the side of Highway 55 in St. Louis, Missouri. Anyway,
What ran out of oil?
Yeah, we didn't even know it. And yeah, it was bad. I mean, it was bad. I mean, the engine was over. We had to have it rebuilt.
I was gonna say, was it the engine or the transmission? Because that happens to both.
True. No, it was the engine.
Mm. No, and that's it. It's a very small thing because the oil is almost an imperceptible layer between the gears because they come so close to touching, but they don't. And if you have a really well engineered set of gears and really good oil, then literally the metallic pieces never touch. They come oh so close, but they don't ever scrape and do damage to one another. And in our relationships with people that we're with every day, if we're able to, I feel like that's the love between us. If we have a way to soften ourselves, and even though oil is something that is apart from us, I feel like it's that part of our aura or the love that we give out. If we're willing to put out, I don't even think it has to be a lot.
It doesn't.
Where I work, I had absolute culture shock when I got to my current job, and I'm not going to say where it is, or I'm just going to kind of keep away from that. But one of the things that was so foreign to me was it was like every time somebody passed each other, they said their name. And I was like, you guys have all worked here for years. You all know each other's name. It's well established that you all know each other's name. Why are you constantly saying each other's name and saying hello and stuff? And I really think that that is part of the good connection that those people have. And they probably wouldn't call it their love for one another. I mean, maybe they would. I mean, they've been working so long together, but I think that is part of their daily routine and oiling is that when you see somebody, you say, hi, so-and-so, and it's their name like every time. I mean, you can hear people say each other's name 5 or 6 times, in the span of an hour. And at some point they just, you start laughing but it really is something that's important, I think, is to know the names of the people that you work with because you see them often and just the small things in life.
I love that. And I need to also share with you at this point that I do have a degree, and my degree is in marriage and family. And we did a lot of study about all of these things. And the truth is that it takes about 5 minutes in the morning of connection, and it takes about 20 minutes in the evening of connection. And to do that oil, to add that to the machine of your love for those that are important in your life. And I mean, anybody also that's raised kids would probably have had the experience of a child that's just driving you nuts. And they're so needy and you just can't get anything done and you're busy and you need them to stop it. And what you find out pretty quickly as a parent is that it takes about 5 minutes of your time for a little kiddo to help them feel grounded, calmed, heard, acknowledged, loved, cared for, and they're good for another hour. It just doesn't take that much.
Because then they're done with you anyways.
I know, right?
5 minutes.
By the way, you're just really not that fun, but I did need a little bit of help. Yeah, I mean, and this has to be consistent. If you give, your child or another person in your life 5 minutes every other week, when you feel like you have 5 minutes you want to share, when you're not too busy with other things that are far more exciting, all those things, if you just do it that way, that's not going to cut it.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to, I'm going to take the but back and say, and if you're willing to go ahead and do that connection each day for those few little minutes, oh my word, it's going to pay dividends. And if you want to back that up, go read Dr. John Gottman. He is the international expert on all things love, and for good reason. And I've taken his courses taught by him and his wife, and gone to many times when he's spoken and presented, and I've read all this stuff, and it can really change your life. And you're going to find out that it doesn't take that much. But another thing, why do I keep saying but? And I'm going to share with you why I don't like that. When we use the word but, we've just negated everything we've said before it. And I don't want to do that. So I'm replacing that both an and. And another thing that's really important is a willingness to take influence from one another. So in other words, if your interaction with someone you love didn't go the way you wanted it to, which I don't know about, probably Bruce, you've never experienced that, but you've probably heard of people who have. Right. So
Right.
during those many times in our lives when we're having interactions with people we love and they don't go the way we had anticipated or would like them to go, we can do a very simple thing and say, dang it, can I have a do-over? I want to do that better. I do that with my kids. I do that with my husband a lot. I do it with friends. I do it with acquaintances. When I have just blown it, I'm like, dang it, can I have a do-over? I know better than that. I can do better than that.
And that's a small thing. I don't think I've ever done that. I've thought it in my head, but I think that's a really good, simple technique to just call yourself on the carpet and to say, I need to try that again. Because at least it's up front. I think that's important, is to just be upfront, no matter what it is you feel or how you feel. Upfront is a very manageable thing for people. Hiding it or trying to bury it is something that nobody else can deal with, because nobody will ever know it's there.
Right.
Because we don't read minds.
We don't. And it's not very loving to require people to read your mind either. I'm just saying that. I will say that you'll get various responses to your request to have a do-over. Some people are really awkward about it, like, what? You want to what? But I've never had somebody say to me, no, you cannot have a do-over.
Yeah.
I've never had that. And mostly what I have is an immediate softening. And when that person softens, of course, it softens me in response. And then you're just on whole better footing to be able to readdress that thing.
No, I think it's a really important aspect to just have that patience to, and even like you said, when you have an interaction that doesn't go the way you want, if it's not you that you want to make better and it's the other person, kind of that softening or hardening against it, you can really just harden yourself against somebody who didn't take what you said the right way. Or you can take a deep breath and just kind of bring it back into context and say, all right, that was one interaction out of several. And a lot of times I think in the heat of the moment, it is very easy to take the frame of our life that is in that very moment instead of the trend of where your relationship has been and friendship with that person, and just stake everything on that heat of the moment instead of breathing and taking a look at how your relationship has been with that person, kind of where they're coming from, and just saying, well, maybe, they've had a hard day too.
Yes.
And you can't just give people that kind of, well, you can give people that kind of leash. You can also lead into things that aren't healthy, but that's always your choice of whether you harden and kind of escalate the situation, or whether you soften and go ahead and take it down in seriousness. And I don't know what the other word I was looking for, but it's gone now.
It was a good one. I loved it.
It was a good one. Yes.
I will say that it doesn't always work so well in terms of softening when you say to the other person, do you want a do-over?
Well, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how you receive it personally.
I know you're not. I'm just saying, be careful how you use the do-over.
There are some times when you'd really like to use that, though, depending,
Yes.
not even caring about the outcome. You're just, please try that again. I know that's not what you
Notice that
meant.
you need a do-over. Yeah, no, that doesn't go well. I also want to just throw out there in terms of our relationships that matter most, that, and this is in particular in marriages, but I'm also going to say it will exist to one degree or another in all of our important relationships, and that is that 69% of our differences, that's, if you're familiar with numbers, practically 70% of our differences with others are unresolvable, meaning they're not going to go away. You can't talk them away. You can't manipulate them away. They are not resolvable. Hence, our tremendous need to consistently give love, to consistently choose to connect daily, multiple times, and to consistently be willing to humble yourself and say, I need a do-over. Can I have a do-over? I can do better than that. And to take influence from the other person.
Yeah, I think that's that oil, because like you're saying, I think that 70% that we can't resolve is just a gear that's going to keep on turning. It's going to keep on coming up. And so until that can be resolved, if ever, the only other thing you can do besides letting it burn and heat up and become a major issue is to try and use oil and try and make it where, instead of constantly hitting and degrading, that it becomes something that you can allow to just clear just barely. It's still there. It's still something that you have to deal with, but it doesn't have to be to something that destroys your relationship.
Right. It's not just grinding you down to powder.
Yeah.
I love it. Cool.
The last comment that I have is, in all of these relationships, I think the most basic one is the one that we have with ourselves. And we've called out several things that we can do better. And I just want it noted that neither one of us are condemning anybody for not being able to put out any of those things, because I think the first thing that has to happen in your relationship is that you have to be able to oil yourself and be able to have the energy and the effort into you before you can start helping with anybody else. And I think that is a lot of the softening that'll happen around other people, is if you've been able to oil your own gears and give yourself some love and compassion and patience, because I think 70% of your own internal struggles, they're just not going to get resolved maybe in your lifetime, but certainly not today. And that's going to be another wheel that's just going to keep on turning and will build heat if you're not willing to put oil and love and patience into that.
I love that, Bruce. And that really is is a foundational piece of this whole puzzle is that it always starts with us. It's always about ourselves. If you, as you mature in a relationship, you begin to realize that the way another person is coming to you is not about you, it's about them. How they present themselves to you, how they respond to you, how they interact with you is them showing you what's going on inside of themselves. So, of course, the same is true on the other side of that coin. The way that you present yourself to another, the way that you respond to them, the way you interact with them, the way you connect is you showing them yourself. So, on one hand, that helps us to have compassion and understanding and can remove that ego response, right? That says, well, you and you should and instead of just saying, okay, wait a minute. So what I know is that you're showing me that you've got turmoil in yourself right now. And on the other hand, it can surely give us some really clear insights to ourselves and the good work that we can be about within our own mind and heart to clean up some hurtful things that's hurting us, that's weighing on us, and to maybe do a little bit of reprogramming, maybe learn a better way, learn a different way, experiment with some other ways of approaching things. Because the truth is, we usually respond the way we were taught. And another truth is, there are a lot of other ways. And again, if we can back ourselves down from that ego that wants to arise in us and say, wow, I really love what that person does in their relationship, in their responses and connections with others, and take a minute to realize there are a lot of different ways. And to pick and choose those ways, and then spend some time being curious and developing, and maybe even replacing some learned behaviors that aren't serving us very well and aren't serving those that we love very well. And that while we're doing all of this journeying in love in our lives, that we would again be gentle with ourselves and be gentle with others as much as we can. And when we're not gentle, and we all know that's going to happen many times, that we will come back and say, I need a do-over.
Yeah.
I need to clean up this mess. I need a do-over. Not even I need to clean up this mess. I want to clean up this mess.
Yeah.
I want a do-over.
And I think that's part of that is what is going to show in a relationship, with the consistency and the willingness to do a do-over. And that's what builds a bond between two people, or even a boy and his dog.
Yeah.
And
Seriously.
lets us hear that whistle from far away.
Yeah. Or a girl that's looking in the mirror and she can say to herself, I need a do-over.
Yeah.
I didn't treat me very well. But yeah, so love. I feel like, again, with all the voices that we hear, all the proverbial whistles that are going on, vying for our attention, vying for our loyalty, vying for our willingness to answer and come to them. I just want to be a voice that says, be willing to love. And by love, I mean not self-serving all the time. I mean a love that's willing to take influence, that's willing to connect, that's willing to be vulnerable, that's willing to be consistent, that's willing to be disciplined, that's willing. That's what I want to say. So let's go out this week and let's practice loving. And let's practice asking for do-overs and just learning and, gosh, getting as smart as my dog Kiska. That's my goal. I want to be as smart as him. Anyway, we love you. We're delighted to have opportunities to connect with you. So go have a lovely, lovely, blessed week. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know that now's the time we say like and subscribe, but even more importantly, we'd like to say take the time right now to care for someone today, whether it's yourself or someone else. And remember that wisdom is knowing we need each other. Have a blessed day.